talk about how your spiritual journey started.
Oh my gosh. I told you in the phone call before this, I was gonna find the first thing I channeled in my 20s
Yeah.
that I didn't know it was channeling. And then I found it and I left it in the kitchen. So can I pause and get
Yes, go get it.
All right. So my spiritual journey, I feel like there's two parts to that. Consciously, where I knew it started, and unconsciously, where my soul was already on the journey and I didn't even know it. So I would say it started, if I could have the earliest memory unconsciously, it would be as a little girl. Um, it'll be where I looked at the world around me and realized, holy crap, I think differently. I don't understand why my mom is like that. I've been called sensitive my whole life. Like they call me sensitive child. Like I could just feel everything. So in this human reality, when you're that type of kid, it's just like, what is wrong with you, And
Right.
like, suck it up, get stronger, don't feel your emotion, all the usual that. And coming from an Asian culture, it's like, now I can look back like, oh my gosh, I couldn't have picked a harder life course. I couldn't have picked a harder family. I couldn't have picked a harder, what the heck, Like
I thought
literally,
Asian cultures, in mind you, this might be my ignorance, but I thought they were more open to things like that. No?
I feel like they're very rooted in fear and they're
Okay.
very rooted in saving faith, which is living their life based on other people and showing themselves how the changing everyone's perception of them. They care too much about crap that didn't matter, pretty much. That's and for me, I was like, how did we get here? Whoa, what's the meaning of life? As a kid, I would go to my mom and ask, and she looked at me like, okay, you just worry about, marrying a doctor when you're older.
High hopes.
I'm like, just like human stuff. So when you say how early, I think unconsciously as a child,
Mhm.
and then consciously, I started really seeking it in my 20s. When I realized a lot of trauma and I realized I had a little bit of life behind me. And then that's when you really seek God and you really try to understand what it is. I mean, I remember consciously asking, what is the meaning of life?
Yeah.
Why are we here? What is it all for? And so I consciously asked that. So therefore, I must have unconsciously lived my whole life seeking that.
Oh, that makes
So
sense.
yeah. And so, and one thing that really hit me was life was I so my background is my mom is a very famous Vietnamese singer.
Mhm.
So she's like a Barbara Streisand. So everyone knows her in the community. And so I was her daughter. And then so I guess she was like Goldie Hawn and I'm like Kate Hudson. I guess you could say mother daughter kind of thing. Yeah. And so um I kind of achieved a little bit of fame in my 20s.
Mhm.
And I remember like, wow, I'm in my 20s. I'm making the most money I've ever have in my age group. I bought a house. I'm doing all these things that they said would bring you happiness. I'm doing all these things. Like they said that when you attain it, you're gonna reach, like, whoa. here and I was the most depressed I've ever been in my life. I was like, why am I feeling like this? Like, and they're like, what's wrong with me? Because everybody would love the life I'm having now, or they want that life. But here I am at that life inside feeling I hate my life. So that didn't align.
Why
And
did
so,
you, why did you hate your life? Do you know what I mean? Like, what was there a pivotal moment where you're like, wait a minute, something's off?
well, I didn't understand it at the time. In my 20s, you're still figuring
Yeah.
out. I didn't understand at the time. I know now, looking back in my 40s, why.
Mhm.
And it's because my soul and the things I was doing wasn't aligned with who I am.
Mhm.
And it was calling for me. I was living my life not being the driver's seat of my life. I was doing it to make my mom happy. I was doing it to make everybody, like, living this life that wasn't, I guess you can say, authentic. And that's, I feel that's why we all go through depression. That's my theory, is because what you want for your life and why you came here, you forgot all that and you start living your life for everybody else. And that's what I was doing. I was letting ex-boyfriends tell me what to do. I was my mom. And now looking back, oh yeah, I was the back seat. I wasn't even the back seat. I was like in the trailer all the way. I wasn't even a back seat to my life. I literally was just like holding on and like, okay, wherever you want to take me, I'll go. If I visualize it, I was probably like a rag doll. Rolled around. And so the universe, now I understand how the universe, everything works, was probably like, all right, let's reel her in. Let's reel her in. I see now my 40s, but in my 20s, you're feeling that ragdoll effect, and you're like, what is going on?
And you're right regarding depression, right?
Yeah.
That there is a disconnect there with source, right? In anxiety and depression of like you said, anybody else looking at your life probably looked at you and went, what is your problem?
Yeah, you're the problem. Like, you need to get yourself together. Like, anyone would be happy to have, And it was because I wasn't sovereign. It was because I wasn't the creator of my life. And someone's calling me. How do I?
Girl, every time we do a podcast with you, it's dogs, phone calls.
I didn't turn the phone part off. I'm so sorry. Just edit that out.
No, it's
So
fine.
that's
Don't
my
worry.
life right there, pretty much. So,
Don't worry
and
about it.
so I was in, I can look back in my 20s, and then in my 30s, it was like, I didn't understand myself. And I call my 30s my dark lost years.
Yeah.
Like my dark, yeah, I call that like, holy cow. I really kind of like, you know, got away from the world, like, because I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I was like, okay, I'm just going, we have this all or nothing mentality. So I'm just like, I'm just going to lock myself up away from the world because obviously there's something happening here. So I just kind of like focus on raising my daughter and, things like that. But it was some dark times in my 30s. So
So what made you, so you went from a very public life,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Doing all
Walking
those things,
away. I
right?
walked away.
You walked away totally. Like,
Yeah.
was there a moment, like, did something push that in you? Like, or was it just like a moment within where you're like, I'm done?
I think I walked away because music started becoming painful to me,
Mm.
and it wasn't a source of joy like how it was in my teens or how it brought me love. It started becoming, I started equating that with pain, control, um, because people were on top of me and things like that. So I have a perspective where I totally understand how Britney Spears feels. I understand how all these artists feel,
Yeah.
because a lot of people can say what, but until you've been in their shoes, you don't know what they went through with Everett. And that's why I'm really glad I went on my spiritual journey, because of a lot of people give up or aren't here anymore because if they don't go on that spiritual journey, or a lot of people give up on God or give up on source. And the one thing that brought me is always my faith in God. I have to say, like, that's the only thing that kind of held me, secure me to know that, okay, today's a bad day, but just take one step forward tomorrow, you know?
Yeah.
Or like you want to give up, but then you take another step forward. But it was my connection with God. And sometimes that light was so dim, but even that dim light is it's like in a dark room. Even if that dim light just shined in the corner, I would just kind of follow that light a little bit.
Well, and
So
speaking of God, right? Because that can be a very triggering word. What is your version of God?
that's a great question, Beckett. I love that question because
Yeah,
you're right. It's a very triggering word because everyone equates that differently. If
totally.
you grew up in a religious home, it comes differently to someone who, so, and I've learned that it can mean universe, it can mean source. You can actually slap whatever name you want on it on your journey, to tell you the truth. That's my theory. You want to name it a tree, go ahead. God is a you, whatever. It's just a name that you, and for me, the definition of God
Mhm.
is back to my question, who are we? Why are we here? And for me, God is not a physical thing that are humans like, oh man, woman, that I portrayed. No, it's an energy. It's this energy that we came from or we are a part of, that is so much light and so much love and so much um it's our spirit. Like it's who we are. And to me, that's what brought, how can I word this? Yeah, so God to me is basically our creator, and we are a part of it. Our spirit and our soul, things that we can't see. It's inside our body. It's the light that shines within us that's connected to source. Does that make sense?
That's awesome. Yeah, that's an amazing definition. And I love that because you're right. It's right. Like I was raised Catholic, not
Yeah.
strict, but my mom wanted us to have religion of some kind.
Yeah.
And, I was never, it didn't make sense to me. Like I didn't
Mm-hmm.
understand why God was so punishing and yet so
Oh,
loving. Like that
yeah.
didn't, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
I couldn't
Yes.
understand that as a kid. I kept asking, and of course, the nuns don't want you to
Yeah.
ask. It's like it just is. You know what I mean? And I also couldn't understand why I can't talk to God. Like, why do I have to go to a priest and go in confession to talk to
Yeah.
God? Like, why can't I just talk to God? And that was also the other part. So it took me some rehabilitation to ever get comfortable again with using the word or term God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because my view of it
Yeah.
was so restrictive and punishing and,
Exactly.
not loving and encompassing. And so I get that. And I think it's an important thing because I know I see people that retract when you say the word God.
Well, here's the conflicting thing I've noticed in my journey, Bucket. It's weird how this world is, because almost everyone I know has a religion in one way or the other. They identify themselves with whatever, Buddhist, Catholic, Christian, Muslim, whatever it is that they label that is to God. And gosh, I had the thought. Oh, coming back. And I was gonna make a point and it lost me. Hold on.
You will. It'll come back.
Yeah.
It'll come back because you were saying, and the thing is, and I want to put this out there because people confuse this all the time. And when I went to school, Buddhism, you got it?
So I live in an area that is very southern and very Christian. Like there's a church in every corner. and I talk to a lot of people, and the one thing I find with religion is they're all in or they're all out.
Yeah.
And if they're all in, they're gonna they know everything from the Bible. The Bible is like Lord's word and it's the truth. And if you're all out, it's because of that control that the church has, or what you just said. I don't understand why. It doesn't make sense. So then they get out. And so the conflict I see is when you're out, it's all or nothing. So you turn away from God and you don't want to know him, or you don't want to know the energy, and you're not connected to it. But it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or anything. A lot of great people I've met don't go to church or don't believe in God. They're amazing people, but they've turned away because of exactly what you said growing up. And then the people that are in it, they feel like, oh, I'm all God, da da da. I'm connected because I go to church, because I church. But I've seen, man, there's some shitty people in church, you know. Like their integrity is not like, they're a bunch of liars or things. And
Yes.
like what they say is like doesn't back up their action. So I find it conflicting. And I guess the message I want to bring out is that you can still be connected to God or source or that energy that religion brings in, use, without going to an organized place to tell you how to be with God. Because
Yes.
those places are just going to tell you how, but you can find it within yourself. And that's how I found my journey. I found it within myself to connect without going to church, and I have tried. I have done all those things. It just did not resonate because it was so controlling. And my thought process was, God would never want to control you like this. That was like he would he the free will. He wants you to learn on your terms, at your pace, and that's why you're here. So for me going in there, it was like, you're this if you're that, you're this and that, da 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 da, and I'm just like, this is way damn too many rules. This is way too many rules for me, you know, it doesn't resonate. And then at my bottom, this is a funny story, Becca. I was like, okay, I give up. I'm with you, God. I'm gonna go convert to capitalism. I went to Catholic. I was gonna convert that day. And that day, something happened in the church where it was like it shut down. Some weird, strange, unfamiliar. And I was thinking, like, well, I guess God doesn't want me to be Catholic. Something happened for a reason. Like he literally stepped in to stop me from being Catholic. And
Well,
I
and
use the term he, but you know, it's like it's just, you know, energy.
it is, and I love that story. And so, right, and here's the thing, because I know, like, I live in the South. I lived down here for a while. Again, very, I'm in North Carolina, so there's a church. There's a lot of churches, and I've been to both. And I know some wonderful people that go to church, but I know some, like you said, not nice people at all that go to church. But that being said, do you find in this day and age now that you're seeing the spiritual community start to take on those church-like tendencies with a lot of kind of coming up with rules of how you ascend and how you become enlightened and how that's very 3D of you? And do you know what I mean? Like starting to come up with these condescending behaviors that to me, in a lot of ways, mimic, right, organized religion and a lot of things that people turned away. You're starting to see that, at least from my perspective, in the spiritual community. But I wanted to know, what are your feelings on that?
For sure. That is absolutely correct. I feel that way too. And sometimes that's why I got to check myself too, because when the ego gets in the way, it doesn't matter what it is, it starts feeling powerful. I know more than you. I got this enlightenment more than you. And so that's why when you check yourself, you got to check yourself. Is that my ego or that my spirit? And a lot of times people don't check themselves and they're running full spirituality on their ego, you know, right? And so that's how I feel. And For me, it's always the energy.
Mhm.
Everything that they say, everything they do, I've almost become, I feel like I'm in training right now where I'm almost becoming an energy reader. Like, I
Mhm.
don't give a crap what your words are saying now. Because in my 20s, I fell for every single word. Like, I really
Yeah.
thought people don't lie to you. You know, like that's how naive I was. I was so naive. Like, oh, and I believe everything, right? I was so naive. But now I'm becoming like an energy reader where, okay, you saying that it sounded, but man, there's a fake vibe to you that I can't, that energy is not sincere. That energy is not genuine, right? And where
Yeah.
is it coming from? It all comes down to the ego wanting to feel superior, wanting to one up somebody, wanting to just to make themselves feel better. And it's great that a lot of people are jumping, finding spirituality.
Mhm.
Um, it's wonderful. It's just that the energy behind it has to be authentic. It has to be real. And I think a lot of people aren't in touch with their heart or their spirit or their feelings enough to know the difference. And I think that's where it is. It's the heart,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the heart. I think like if you go on a spirituality journey, if you can't be vulnerable, if you can't be transparent, if you can't even open your heart and speak, then you're not on the spiritual journey. I don't know what journey you're on, right? A lot of people are doing all this journey and their heart is as closed and they can't be vulnerable. And I'm like, okay, we have a lot of work.
To do. You need to open
Right?
your heart space. Well, yeah, because
Yes.
that's your biggest aura,
Yes.
right? Like
It's the
that's the
heart.
yeah, it's your biggest transmitter. And it's interesting because you're seeing a lot of people lately that are, whatever, bigger names. I'm seeing them judge or, you know what I mean, like really put people down, or that's not how you do this, or that's not, and it's like, wait a minute, like that's like the opposite of spirituality. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
everybody's journey is different. Everybody's
Yes.
tools are different, just like there's 1,000 different ways to meditate, and I tell
Yes.
people that and they're like shocked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, what? I don't have to
Yes.
just sit
I
on a cushion.
do.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, no,
Yeah.
there's 1,000 different ways for you to connect. And so
I
I think it's
I
interesting.
use I learned that the minute you start saying my way's the right way, your way's
Yeah.
the wrong way, that's ego completely in jumping. Spirit doesn't do that. Spirit just like, okay, you got your journey, you got your way. I see it, I hear it, I might not agree with it, that's fine. Kind of like that. But I think humans are always jumping on each other's lane. Like
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
like instead of like focusing on our journey, our lane, our path, we're it's so hard to do. It's so hard to look in
Is it
that we're
hard?
like, oh, look at that guy. Oh, look at that. La, 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 la. And then we don't do the work that we need to
Is it hard
within.
though? Is it really hard?
It's hard sometimes when the
It
ego
is.
overtakes you.
It
That's
is.
that's why I feel like, yeah.
Well, and that's right. That's the next level, right? Of our words. What are you
Yeah.
using for your words? And I think that's, there's this idea that we're going like, we're still spiritual beings here having a human experience. And I think this idea that you've got to kill your ego and right, like leave your humanness aside and ascend, that is not the point.
Yeah.
That is not why we came here. That's not why we
Yeah.
chose to forget everything. We
Yeah.
came here to embody this human experience and still be anchored in this 3D, but understanding that we are, sovereign and way beyond 3D and that what we're
Yeah.
capable of. But it's this intermixing, right? It's the shadow and the light together, and it's a dance. And I think
Yeah.
that's where a lot of people get confused.
Well, it's a hard dance to do if no one taught you how to do the steps. Think about it. You say it's a dance, but okay. Have you seen some people on the dance floor?
Yeah, I'm one of them. I can't dance.
Oh, it's so easy to dance. Yeah, to you, but to me, I have two left, whatever, you know?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, it's not, and I think it's like to your point, what you just said, it's a beautiful thing that people are waking up. It's a beautiful thing
yeah,
that people are seeking out, right? What is this? Asking questions, questioning everything. I think what's sad is spirituality now has become almost tainted like religion has. Do you know what I mean? There's
yeah.
a lot of
But
people that hear
true.
the word spiritual now and they don't like
Yeah,
it. It almost falls in line with the word God. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
spiritual because it's so tainted to a degree of not embracing people, like you said, who don't know how to dance. Like, what are you talking about that, we're energetic beings? And what do you mean that I can, right? Like, talk to you telepathically or, you know what I mean?
yeah,
All of that is
yeah,
foreign. So it's like,
yeah.
what?
Yeah. And usually when you first do that journey, you start the journey and you awaken to this, yeah, everyone thinks you're crazy.
They do.
Yeah. Like, look, trust me, my husband was like, I, you're not the person I married. I'm like, okay, but it's
What was the
funny.
hardest part of your awakening?
My hardest part I feel is learning to still embody this body and navigate and um, interact with people who doesn't understand what I'm talking about. Like
Mm.
I sit here and this is a normal conversation. Like, oh my God. That's why when I first met you, it's like, okay, I'm not crazy because there are people out here who are like, I never met you, Beckett. And
Right.
it's like talking the same language, right? And it is a different language.
It
And we're
is.
talking the same and I think the hardest part is like a language. I'm interacting every day with now I'm a hairstylist and I every day I have new people, new clients, and I'm meeting new people and just like adapting myself. Okay, where's their level at? So I can speak to them, not their, like, oh, and there's some clients who are getting, so we're talking like this, and then we're talking like this. So it's like I have to change languages and energy. And yeah, sometimes I'm like, I gotta lock myself in the world for 2 days because the energy is from everyone's just too intense. I just gotta clear and be alone so I can regroup and get my energy or myself back because it
How did you
messes
even learn though to do that?
just by meeting so many people.
Yeah.
Like of my singing career, I met so many people, and I was in the perspective of um, people almost worshiping, like, oh my God, you're so, and I didn't understand that. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, like, please don't do that. Like, it felt so uncomfortable, right? And then while other singers like, oh, love me, love me, love me,
Right.
and I was just like, oh, what is this worshiping thing? Like gross. You know? I'm human. Like literally, I was just me, and overnight, people start treating me different, and I didn't understand that. So I got that perspective of that, and then I was like, oh, f that, I don't want that anymore. I walked away and started serving people, and started um like hairstyling. I was who you're talking now to, Beckett, was not who I am in my 20s. Like I'm
Yeah.
like a completely different person. So I went to hair school like all shy and timid and all, and being on the floor doing hair had taught me to open up, to communicate,
Wow.
yeah, to talk. And now I can talk to anybody. And before I didn't even have that tool. I didn't know how to.
Really?
And
Even
yeah,
being the entertainer you were.
no. So this is what I used to be so shy and timid, and but when I get on stage, it's almost like I was a different person. And people
Okay.
used to think, "Oh, you were like possessed when you perform, or you were not there." And it's true. When the music hit, I would like become a different person, and then the music stopped. I'll be like, "Okay," I'm also like, all shy and everything. Yeah. And then I thought that my real self was who I was off stage when the music started.
Right.
Come to find out years later, doing a spiritual journey, my true self was when the music hit.
So do you
So
think so to that point, and there might not be people who understand that, right? And you and I will, because I'm gonna ask you, do you think it was an out of body experience when you hit the stage, or do you almost feel like you were more in body?
it was more my higher self embodying my
Right.
whole body because I released all everything and just was in the moment and in flow.
Get that. I
So
totally get that. As an artist,
yeah,
I go into
so
that
that
state.
yeah, so yeah, so
Yeah,
when I see performers, like I know when performers like Beyonce or J-Lo, when they perform, they are like in their zone, or that's the
right.
like, it's almost like a, how can it's almost like their direct connection is with source, and then the crowd is loving that and trying to connect to that through source, through them, if that makes
Yes.
sense, right?
Yes, that's totally right. It's called, I
Yeah,
think there's a book written by, I forget, I think it's this Russian psychologist or whatever. It's called Flow. And
yeah,
it's exactly that. Artists, musicians, and I know when I get painting, like hours can pass.
yeah.
I'm just channeling this flow of like, this is what's coming out. You know what I mean? So I totally understand that. You get, it is that connection. You're directly connected in that moment.
And I think when you ask me what's the hardest part, why can't I have that flow and connection 24 hours a day, 7 days a week when I'm out in the world? Like, you know, like, so the hardest part is being human. Oh my God, you know?
Well, the thing is, we can. It's just we're not right. We're not attuned to that because, and I don't know. I don't want to speak for you when you were on stage, but I know, well, like when I'm doing art, I'm in a room. You know what I mean? Like I've kind of set the stage, no pun intended, to be in that state and understand this is what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe there's music on, maybe there isn't. Whatever, my phone's away, and I think in our society, there's so many distractions. That's why attention really and mindfulness, like where that comes into play is understanding that that is your cash. Your attention is your cash. The more attention you're giving to TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, everybody else, you're not in connection with flow
Yeah.
because you're not attentive. You know what I mean? So when you think about that, we live in a world that is full of pulling you away from.
Yes, exactly. And that's the hardest challenge, right? Even I know it and I'm still dealing with it every day. Like, and I've lived with ADHD my whole life. And that adds another level of difficulty in this, how to function. Like people don't understand, oh, you're the ADHD, but when you truly live with it, it's like
Yeah,
I'm holding a cup of coffee, I'm drinking, oh, I think of this, and I drop it there, and then I run off in there. Next thing is like my husband's like, okay, tornado Shayla back, you know, because I got 20,000 ideas brainstorming, but then I have to pick up my daughter. It's like, and for me, I have almost now I'm trying to train or teach myself to control that focus. Does
that's it.
that
Yeah, that's it. No, I get that because I have it after my brain injury. I acquired it, right? And so I get that. Like I can, some days I'm very good at focusing, and I've learned now for me certain hours of the day I focus better than later hours of the day.
yeah.
And I know a lot of people that have ADHD and they struggle with that, but that's also, and it's interesting you bring that up because like ADHD, autism, Asperger's, a lot of that, we don't know it, but everything that I've learned from energetic and consciousness is these are human beings, yourself included, that just vibrate at a much higher level and have a higher understanding than everybody else. Do you know what I mean? They
Well,
see the world in a much different way. And you, I know because I've done your human design, you also are a Manny Jenny. So well, no, but I mean, in a lot of ways, that coincides with your ADHD. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Because we like to do things, multiple things at a time. You know what I mean? We like to have our kind of hands in different pies, and we
yeah,
can't just focus on one thing. So, in
yeah.
ways, I think it's interesting that you've even been able to be a hairstylist now and do all that. Because do you find that's difficult with your ADHD, or does that actually enhance it, like help it?
Well, the thing with ADHD is it's everywhere until you do it. So like it's everywhere, everywhere. But when you get on stage, you're hyper focused and you got the mood, da da da. And then hair, oh, I forgot this, but then when you're actually doing it, you're focused. So it's kind of like a weird switch when you're so you want it to be good or great, then you're focused. But half the time when we're living our daily life, it's like you're not gonna be great at everything, you know. So you're not that hyper focused, yeah. But when you're like your art, you want it to be great. You want to come, so you're hyper focused, right? When it's
Right.
yeah, and yeah. I think also you said you had it after your brain injury.
Hmm.
So does that mean that I was born with brain injury.
Well, no, here's the thing, it can be a side effect or
Trauma. Yeah.
a cause because, depending on what part of your brain is affected, and this is what people don't realize because they don't really know a lot about the brain, you know what I mean, will depend on what capabilities are altered, and where my brain was hit and damaged, so to speak, or, had to do a detour and come around, I just suddenly have a little bit. And I think there's a scale from everything I understand about ADHD and where you fall, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I realize it pops up, and I was supposed to have like therapy and sessions to help teach me, but I couldn't afford it at the time. And so I haven't. So I've had to learn on my own a lot of things, but
I just had a thought that came down when you were speaking, Becky. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I
no,
didn't want to
please.
that maybe I had ADHD is to protect me because it also protected me in a lot of ways I didn't realize. And I'll give you an example. I remember I used to think I was dumb because I could never get I never got good grades in school because and so I remember the teacher talking and my brain would be like da da da. But that protected me from being indoctrinated. It was. And I used to think, oh, when God made me, he made me all right brain. Like everything about me is right brain, like creativity, anything. It's so easy for me. So easy for me to perform, so easy for me to anything to do with art. It's so easy.
So it's easy
And
would you say it's easy for you to be in flow?
yeah,
Okay.
but then in this world, most people are logical, left brain, kind of,
Well, I think they've built a system, right, which we know doesn't work. Everybody doing the same job, working the same amount of hours, doing
yeah,
the same things, you know what I mean, to your point, and in going to school and being indoctrinated to go, this is how you work, this is the
yeah.
dream, this is how you be. But that's not the way we're all supposed to live.
Well, I am immune to that. I rejected it my whole life. Yeah, I
Right.
did.
So to your point, you're right. It's a gift,
Yeah,
right? And
it's a gift.
that's what
That's
I'm
why I said it's a gift because I rejected it my whole life. Had I been like everyone else, I wouldn't have rejected it. I would have just taken it in. But it's a gift. But I said, well, that's not right. And that doesn't feel good. That doesn't feel right. It was
yeah.
always about feeling, and I was always connected to the feeling where that doesn't resonate. That doesn't feel right. Yeah.
Do you think you've embraced your ADHD now? And because I know a lot of people that have ADHD have, like you said, felt dumb in school, didn't, you know what I mean, really struggled with their
Yeah.
confidence because they didn't
Yes.
fit in, you know what I mean?
Yes.
They weren't like everybody else. Have you made peace with that? Have you embraced it? Like, what has been that journey with that?
It's still an ongoing journey, and there are good days and bad days. There are days now that I'm more aware. I'm able to. It always helps when I slow down, when I kind of like take breathing, and I'm like, okay, I'm consciously focusing. Like when I'm driving, don't let my mind wander. I'm focusing on the road. Like I have to tell myself, talk myself through it, and it helps that I'm walking. So I have to consciously slow it down, kind of take it, and that's also good for mindfulness too. So
Yes, I was just going to say that. So
yeah, it's also
you're intuitively mindful.
yeah. So I feel like with ADHD, we it's almost like I don't want it to be like a label
Yeah.
where and accept it. I want it to be where it's like, okay, it's something that I need. I think I'm gonna look at it like a brain injury because it's a brain injury that I can overcome,
Mhm.
you know? Whereas it's just accepting it. Oh, I'm gonna be, distracted or disorganized my whole life. That now I'm like, no, I'm rewriting the story because if we're our own co-creator, I'm gonna rewrite this story because I don't want it anymore. I don't want it affecting. I haven't been able to go on one path because my path has been like this. So now I'm like, okay, I need to like I want to write it in a way where.
See,
So
I love
that's
that because I listened to something this week. Brene Brown was talking about stories and saying that when we deny a story, we let it define us. When we accept our story, we get to write the ending.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's beautiful because that's exactly what you're saying, you know, and same thing for me, because it's like you never overcome a brain injury. You never completely heal or recover from it.
Yeah.
You assimilate, you adapt. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? And it's like, okay, right? It's back to that thing that we know of, what you resist persists. So if this is what I am now and this is how I've changed, how do I accept this part of me and integrate it into me? And like you said, own it and go, I'm going to rewrite this ending and go, okay, it doesn't matter that I have this ADHD or, you know what I mean, short-term memory loss or whatever your issue is, right? Is how do I now work with this versus fight it?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And one of the big learned lessons is just not be a victim to whatever happens. Because I was the biggest victim, biggest. And that has been a huge learning. Every situation, I always ask myself, what part did I have in it now? You know, like what part? Because in your 20s, you don't see your part in it. You think it's just happening to you. And then in your 40, I can look back and like, well, I did let that person in, you know.
How did you do that though? How did you make that shift from victimhood to empowerment?
Oh, when it's painful enough, you have no choice back in.
A lot of people don't though. I know a lot of people
When
that
it's so painful, you're like, what the F is going on here?
I hear you. I mean, it's right. It's that quote I love of, when you get sick of your own bullshit, you'll change. Like when it's so painful, but I know people that really thrive in the pain. Like they just are so ingrained in it that they can't see their way out of it. You know what I mean? And again, that's honoring that soul's journey for whatever reason.
Oh, the thought just came to me again. Source,
Yeah.
God. It was almost like if I could visualize it, it was almost like a little lifeline, like almost like a thread of light, right? This is how I'm putting it visually, a thread of white light. And how did I get it? I slowly kind of pulled and climbed my way out to be closer. And when I got, more information came to me and more, things happened, and I was able to see things in different light where I hadn't before. So when
Right.
I'm in that darkness, it literally is, you can't see anything. You can only see your pain. You can only see your thing. But when you follow that little thread of light, there's that hope. I would say hope and faith got me through. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. But I'm gonna follow my heart, follow this light, and that's what got me out.
That's amazing because that's like I get it. You know what I mean? And that
Yeah,
was what kept me going in some of my
yeah,
darkest times is, you know, I didn't
yeah,
die. I had a 1%
yeah.
chance of living. I didn't die. So clearly I'm supposed to be here. Yeah, you know, so I totally get that. And it kind of
Yeah.
that's a great lead into this question, which is, what is the most unexpected or surprising thing you've come to understand about living an awakened life?
Mm. Okay, I would need that question again for really to sink in to find that.
Totally.
I don't want to just give you a, yeah. I really
Okay.
want to answer that. So,
So what's the most unexpected or surprising thing you've come to understand about living an awakened life?
ooh, I would say that this journey, everyone watching it, one thing I've learned about the awakened life is this journey is with yourself. You think it's with everybody. You think it's with your parents. You think it's with your brother. You think it's your kids. You think all this surrounding, yeah, the physical. But when you walk this awakened life and come within, it's you. That's it. Like, holy shit. If things happen to you, it's like, oh my gosh, what vibration was I in to manifest this to teach me? It's like, why am I in this vibration? I don't want this. What am I doing? Oh, he's teaching me that I still hold a blockage in self-worth or not, it's like everything has a lesson. And I don't think people get that. Like when it's happening, they're just think, oh, I'm so angry at that person. I mean, da 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 da. And it's none of that. It's like, okay, it's happening, and why? If you go to the question why, oh, it happened because my vibration is this, because I thought this, I still believe in this. So it all comes back to you, you
Yeah.
know? So even when people project stuff on me now, before my awaken, your human self wants to defend, fight, run, all that. It's like knee-jerk reaction. Now their waking life is like, oh God, it's so hard to take it. Like I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna listen to what they say and understand that what they're saying is not about me. It's really about them. But damn, it feels like me. It feels like me. But you're testing me right now. And there are many times I failed, like, and but then times I walk away like, okay, I passed that test. I'm on to the next level.
Yeah, right. I always
It
say
feels
that.
like
It's like a video game.
the
It's
movie.
levels.
It feels like a freaking video game.
It is. That is. I always used to tell that with my groups and my clients, like,
Yeah.
it's a level, you know what I mean? And you might fight the
Yeah.
same, even bad guys, so to speak, although nothing's bad. You know what I mean? Again,
Yeah.
that's a whole other conversation of how we
Yeah.
label stuff and the words we
Yeah.
use. But
And I want to elaborate that it just when you think you master something, the universe comes back you, tests you 10 times harder with a really exam to make sure you really pass it.
right.
Like, oh no, you haven't.
Well, and it'll even do that with the good stuff. Oh, you
Yeah.
say you want that, right? A partner, love, everybody wants love, right? But then that person shows up and nobody knows what the hell to do with them. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yes.
this is everything you said you wanted, and yet you're running
Yes.
down the road because it scares you, right? It's like, okay, you say you want these good things. Are you ready? Are you prepared?
Yes.
Are you
Yes.
open to receiving? Is your
Yes.
heart space open to that? You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I hear a lot, I watch a lot of reality love shows. That's my thing because I like to see how people act. And a lot of people, yeah, I'm protecting my heart. I'm guarding my heart. Da, da. And when I hear that, I'm like, no,
Right.
you look for love in the love dating show when you're standing here like, I'm protecting myself. Or, no, you're not ready. Like you need to come in with vulnerability and open heart to receive it because the right person is going to come along. But if you're sitting there, no, that person needs to prove to me and I need to protect my heart, then you missed out. You missed
Yeah.
out on the love that you asked for. You asked for it, the universe brought it, and you turn your cheek,
Right.
So it's
Well, and that's right. And that goes back to exactly that of understanding that your intention is behind everything. Does my intention match what I'm trying to bring into my life or be in my life? Because if like to your point, my intention is to go on a dating show to find love. But if I'm going in protecting my heart, they're not matching.
yeah.
And the universe doesn't care. It doesn't say, oh, well, that person doesn't really mean that. It goes, it's going to give you that mixed signal energy because your intentions and your actions aren't matching. And I think, that's another thing people don't get with manifestation. You know what I mean? It's like your
Yeah.
intention behind it to manifest it have to be aligned. You have to have your intention and your inspired action going in the same direction.
Yeah. So I feel like with love, I got that part down. So now for me, it's the finance part because I put out there, I want to be like, financial. I put it out there, but then, oh shit, now I'm getting all this stuff. What am I doing that's not aligning? And it's showing me, and I was just like, oh my God,
Well,
how do
yeah.
I
And,
rewrite it?
yeah,
Yeah,
self-worth plays into that. Finances, everything, like
yeah,
everything intertwines,
yeah,
and there's different modalities will be different lessons for different people. Some people it's love, some people it's money, sometimes it's both. You know what I mean? But it's like knowing that and going, okay, like you're saying, why am I vibrating in this light? Why am I bringing this into my reality? If I get to create my reality,
yeah.
great part is then if I get to create it, I get to change it.
That's why I was just thinking one of the other challenges, I just can't be around people now who gossip or I just can't be around that. I just cannot. Like if they start talking or judging, I gotta walk out of the room because I'm at the level where you don't know anybody's journey. You met them for 5 minutes, you form an opinion, you start talking. That's such a low, like to me,
Yes.
I can't do it. And for me, this is human now has that energy. And I just like, we're like, we should start looking at each other where, damn, I have compassion for where you've been, because I don't know your childhood. I don't know what you've been through. You know, I'm not going to judge. And I think if we can just get rid of the judgment, and I
Yeah, and that's
can't,
the
yeah.
connection, right? It's back to where we started. If we're all pieces of God and we're all expressions of God and we're all experiencing God, right? It's like that person is me. I am that person, and they're experiencing a different perception, a different reality, but we're still the same. You know what I mean? And if we could get to that core understanding of, like you said, I may not have to understand it. I may not even agree with it, but I have to respect you as the sovereign being that you are, having the experience that you're having, and send love to you, not judgment.
But the hard part for me, not hard, sorry, I shouldn't use the word hard,
It's
but
okay.
the the challenge thing for me is I am so surrounded by people who want to control. So I'm almost like allergic now to people who are controlling. It's like it gives because they want their view and beliefs on you, and they want you to do what they want. And I'm just like, I like, please stay in your
Well,
lane.
right, but it's extending love from afar, right? And I think that's the other thing people think of, like, well, I have to love you and accept you. You got to be a part of my life, and it's like, no, I can still love and accept you, but keep you over there, right? Because I just don't vibrate at that level. I honor that you're at a different, and again, I hesitate saying that because we hear so much in the spiritual, I vibrate at this level, and it's like, it's not like that. It's just,
Yeah,
to your point, for
consciously.
people, right, who are just awakening, as you ascend and you awaken, you do start to repel things that you didn't bother you so much anymore, now start to bother you. Like, for instance, you gossip, being around people who gossip. It's like, I don't want to be a part of that. It's very
Yeah,
low energy stuff. I don't vibe with it, right? It's the energy of that. No judgment. That's where you're at.
yeah.
That's your thing. Hopefully, great. I just don't want to partake in that. And I think that's the difference of judgment and saying these people are bad and they don't know any better. They're not awakened. They're sheep. They're not woke, right?
Yeah.
To, I see you. I hear you. Not
Yes.
my thing. I love you. Enjoy
Yes.
your day. I'm going to be over here.
Yes. But people take offense to it, Beckett. People take offense when you set that boundaries, because their ego is like, oh, you think you're too good for me now? You think da da da. So,
But that,
and
but
also,
that, but to your
like,
point, that's us having to stay in our lane. What you think of me is none of my business, good or bad, right?
and a lot, yeah, and that's one of the hard, not hard. I gotta get out of the vocabulary.
People are going to understand and be like,
Program. I want
why
to
does
say
she keep
program.
editing hard?
Yeah, we're programmed.
Yes.
Face it, we're programmed. It's very deep, deep programming that we have. And one of the part of the awakened journey is, for me, I had this conscious thought, everything my mom taught me is wrong. you know?
Yeah.
And I even told her, I said, Mom, you taught me all this, and the culture taught me all this. And now I've come to find out I did exactly I was told. I was that good child that did exactly. And here I am. I'm learning. It's effed up. That's not real. That's not like it's not true.
Right.
It's a very disempowering state, what they teach you. And so
Totally.
very. And so now I'm like, okay, that's my first half of my life. I'm almost 50, and now I'm gonna have the second half. So now I'm gonna do the second half, rewriting or deprogramming that.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of lucky I have a 6 year old later in life. So now she's almost getting the best of me as a parent, because I'm aware now as a parent. Whereas I do have a 19-year-old, and I was very like everyone else, not awakened, not conscious, doing what my mom did, doing everything. And so, I see it's just different perspective now. It's just crazy, Beckett. Like so weird. I'm sitting here talking to you because if I talk with another person, I feel like they won't get it.
A lot of people don't, but I think the nice thing is they are. And that's why it's important to do podcasts like this, right? To
Yeah.
to bring things out so people can start, because they're seeking, they're searching, they're like, okay, like to your point, am I crazy? Because that's what everybody thinks. I thought it, you thought it, all of us when you hit this journey is like, am I nuts? Like, and your family and friends around you are like, yeah, you're kind of crazy. You know what I mean? And even though my mom dips in and out of that, you know, she still would look at me and go, hmm. And I've come to own that. I'm okay with that anymore. You know what I mean? I don't care what people think, because I know what's truth and you know what's honest, and it's come from a heart space. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm not trying to, right, we're change anybody. It's like, here's the information, take it or leave it. If it resonates, great, right?
That's
But
true. Yeah.
yeah, we're here
Yeah.
to help people. So I have two questions for you
Yes.
that will wrap this up, that are signature questions that I ask everybody. And you've kind of hinted to one, but it'll be interesting to see what you have to say. So the first one is, what's one spiritual superpower you've cultivated through your journey that you wish everyone could access?
It's a knowingness. It's like it's an instant knowingness of what is truth and real and what's not. It's almost like I have a bullshit detector now. And it's just like a knowing, like if you feed me bullshit, like before my 20s, I'm like, oh, I'll soak it up. Yeah. And now it's like, oh, I have this superpower where I got my angels talking to me now. And I tell my husband that too. Like he would like do this argument. I'll be like, he can't one up me, because I was like, I already have my angels like calling you out on your BS. So when strangers, people like when they see me lies or bullshit, it's almost like the energy of it. And it's this knowingness. I don't know if it's telepathic. I don't know if it's channeling. I don't know what it is, but I've tapped into that, oh yeah, this is, this is my truth. And before I couldn't tap into it. So what got me down the wrong path is because I would believe it, or I would fall for it, or I would be that, in the tarot card, it would be a fool card, right? And so now it's like, oh, okay, I'm a different tarot card now. Yeah, so it's a knowingness, and I think people think it's not real or it's
Mhm.
not true because they can't access it, or they don't believe in the spiritual side of the world, but it's all spiritual. It's something you can't explain. It's something um but it's a knowingness, and when you connect to it, you can literally connect to your angels, and
Mhm.
you can get an answer. Like if you ask a question, oh my God, why bam, it'll show you. It'll show you either in a download, it'll show you through the universe, it'll show you. And it's funny, you asked that because I didn't know I had the superpower of channeling.
Yeah.
So and when I first got into awakening, I was like, oh my God, people are gonna think I'm freaking crazy. I know how to channel. And their mind would be like, I'm channeling demons, I'm channeling like really dark things, because they have made it where it's so scary to do this type of
Mm-hmm.
action that you're messing with the devil, if it's not right. And
Yeah.
I've come to learn, no, it's actually a very tool. It's a great tool to have. And I realized I was channeling in my 20s because I was writing songs. There's songs out
Yeah.
there that I can go back to, and those are all my lyrics. So that means I was messaging or writing stuff that was
Mm-hmm.
coming down to me, and that was the knowingness. And so I was doing that in my 20s without even realizing I was channeling. And later on during my awakening, oh, I channeled a lot. Like I had booklets of channeling too. And I had told you that I had channeled this when I was 25. This was my first channel, and channels, I like to channel through writing.
Right.
So it really, like if I hold a pen, it would just come through. And
Yep.
sometimes I wouldn't even know what comes through. I would just like let it flow. It's like
Yep.
I let the flow go, and it'll just like write, right? And so that's one of my abilities that I've learned a superpower I've had. And can I read this to you?
Yes, yes, please do.
I feel like this is good to share. Like this, and it's
Yes.
amazing. I still have this because I've moved like 1,000 times, and I still have this because I put this in my oldest daughter's baby book. And I had written this in a hotel room, in when I was on tour. And a lot of people don't understand when you a singer and touring, people think, oh, you're around so many people, but really, it's a very lonely life.
Yeah.
Like once the music is off and people just you're in your hotel room and you're alone and nobody's there, you know? Like it's really a quiet life. So that's why a lot of musicians have trouble kind of like being with themselves behind all that noise. So I was channeling this because this was one of, like, told you, I was like confused. I didn't know what the heck was going on. Why am I feeling like this? Like we first talked about,
Yeah.
right? And okay, I'm gonna share it. I was 25, so this was 23 years ago. I said, I just put a pen, I start writing, and it says, Dear God, thank you so much for your many blessings. You have always been there for me when I feel alone. What is the purpose of life? When you told us my spiritual journey, this was probably my first conscious, like what the like what is it? Like why are we here? What are we
Right.
doing? Because it felt like Groundhog Day, you know, like we
Yes.
wake up, da 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 da, and people are just like, and I'm sitting there like, hello, like what is it? So I channeled this, and anyway, so I pretty much what's the purpose life, and also I was trying to figure out who I am. Am I here to sing and entertain? Am I here to be a good mom? Blah blah blah. So that's personal, and this is the answer I got. See, I didn't I want to live my life with purpose and integrity. I must have like followed the spiritual journey, right? Without okay, what was the answer I got? Here we go. Okay, so this is the response I got. You may be rich, you may be poor. It's up to you when you open and choose the door. Either way, it will end up the same. Might take you a longer path to play this game. That's the channel, I swear
Oh,
to
that
God.
gave me chills. Like, and that's usually
And
my
then like
guides, like telling me it's
life,
on point.
like I swear back at life is still full of memories. Here today, gone tomorrow. Make the best of it every day. That's the challenge.
Wow. Yeah, that gave me a little goosebumps there. Like, that's just,
Something special about this. Like this was literally like Paradise Hotel Casino. Like if you can say, I scribbled it on a notepad in the hotel room. Like I was like, ugh. And something told me to just hold it with me during my journey. Isn't that crazy? And now I'm sharing it with you for the first time because
that's amazing. I mean, I used to do that because I also channel, you know what I mean? And I used to do that when I started was free writing, you know what I mean? Where you literally,
yeah,
because there's stuff that I'll even read that I wrote that I'm like,
yeah,
right? Like it wasn't me writing that. It was just flowing through. So
yeah,
anybody that's listening, if you ever want to try it or channel, free writing is a great way to do it. You're just not thinking about what you're writing and just let
yeah,
it flow. Just let it
yeah,
flow. Like don't even try to think, even if it doesn't make sense, so to speak, just let it flow. And you start to create that connection and that flow and stuff starts to come through. And that's pretty profound. I mean, for you to be able to,
it didn't make sense at me at 25 though. At 25,
right.
I was like, what the heck? But now looking back, I'm like, oh my God, I see my journey now. Like I was everything. I got to be a mom, I got to be a singer, I got to be everything. And I think in this world, they tell you you can only be one thing. And I find that kind of sucks. You're here for this whole experience and we're kept in a box. So I'm always like, yeah, if you put me in a box, I will climb my way out.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't like a box. I never did. Even as a child, I never did. You know what I mean? I didn't like clicks. I don't, constriction to me just didn't make sense. Even, I'll be honest with you, I used to sit there and think, why do we have countries? Like, why do we have states? Like, who gets to determine that this part of the world is mine and you have to pay me to live here and you have to get you like as a kid, I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, I mean,
Well,
and it's all that.
I do know because I was like, why do we have languages? Why did someone sit there and decide let's form 50 more languages when it's so hard? Why can't we all just speak one damn language for everything? Like, what? Like, did you think that my is better than yours? Like, like, why? Why do we?
Well, and now that we know what we know, right?
Yeah.
Which I'll get to the last question here in a minute, but it's like now that we know that we're all source experiencing and expressing itself as source, it makes sense now why we have different languages, why we have different countries, right?
Yeah.
Because there's different cultures, because they're all different experiences, and we wouldn't have those if they weren't here. So to me now, it's like, to your point, it came full circle. You know what I mean? As a kid, I had all these questions and I didn't understand it. And now that I've gotten to where I am now in life, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. Right? It's that expression. Why? Because why do all singers sing different things? You know what I mean? It's different. It's that expression part. And I think that's so intriguing, and where we fall victim as humans, because we judge the other. We judge what we don't know. We judge, well, I don't resonate with, you know what I mean? We judge instead of honoring it and going, okay, and seeing it as a sovereign experience for that soul, for that human, and maybe it touched my life in some way. I don't have to understand it all even. I just have to be in the moment to experience it and honor that. And that's it. You know, good or bad. And I think we don't know how to do that as humans. It's,
I
you know,
think because human is still vibrating at a very scared, fearful level. Like if we really take that fear and scaredness away and see it for what it is and look at the glass half full instead of half empty, I would think, oh my God, it's so cool that everyone has different race and different cultures and different language and different everything. Because I can learn from you. I can
right.
learn, I can grow because all that is growing for you. And you take it in and you grow. And it's like a flower, you take in the water. But what we do in the past is, oh, I'm so scared. I only know what I know. Don't go near me because I don't know you. So I'm not going to connect because I don't know you and I might be like you.
Right.
Whereas for me, I think one of my positive thing is I've always been open-minded, like open-minded. I've never been closed-minded. And also I've been very adaptable. So those two things have always helped me in life where I'm open-minded to I growing up, I didn't know any gays. So when I met gays, I embraced it. I got to know, I didn't know any black people. So I got in their culture, know their food, da da da. So I took everything and honestly, I love everything because everybody and everyone has a great positive side to it. And
Yes.
that has also been a curse for me where I look at the good side, like the good side of people and good side. So, but if we go through our journey and just like start really seeing what another person can teach you or bring value instead of being afraid of it or what you don't know and running from it or thinking I'm better than you or you're better than me, da da da. Like if you can just come, I always came into where, hey, no one's better than each other.
Right.
No one like even when I was a singer, I was never like I'm a famous singer and you're not. I was just like I didn't. We're coming at the same. What am I gonna learn from you? What are you gonna learn from me? Or what can I teach you? Or what? It's it's a school pretty much, and people here are either ready to learn or they're not. And through my journey, there has been a segment where I'm like, I don't want to fucking learn. So,
No, that's okay.
I don't want
No,
to
you can say
learn.
that.
So it's
Yeah.
really free will what you want to do. But one thing I do say, because it's all energy, there's we got to get rid of the hate. Like, like the energy of hate now on this earth is like, like it gives me like, like there's just so much. Well, there's love too, like
Well, we
but
just don't see that. I mean, and I always look at it this way. It's going to get right. Like we know, in order to expose the shadow, you have to have more light. And when there's more light, there's more shadow. So it makes sense to me that as the frequency is rising and the love is growing on the planet, also is the hate going to
that's
be
true.
shown more and more. That's
Yeah.
just the way, the earth works. We
Yeah.
have to have the darkness and the light. You
Yeah.
can't not have darkness. Otherwise, you would never see light. You know what
That's
I mean? And
true.
I think that again is the key to really understanding, and probably do an episode on this, of definition of love, right? Like in understanding that, and how do you sit at a table with someone you claim to maybe hate or feel uncomfortable, and yet exude love to them, right? And understand that, like, that's the only way we get through this. It's not
Yeah.
this fighting,
Yes.
back and forth. It's understanding that. So I always look at it, when things start to get really dark, that must mean that the light is getting really bright as well.
That's a good perspective, Beckett.
Yeah.
I was, yeah, I didn't see it like that. Because when it started
So
to
it's
get dark, I would run.
most people do, you know what I mean? But it's always because,
Yeah.
again, we're living in a world where they don't want you to see that. I mean, that's why I don't watch
Yeah.
the news. I don't watch, it's
Yeah.
always
I
just
don't even.
fear, 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 fear. And that's, like you said, we're programmed to think more that way than to understand that if there's more darkness, that means there's more light, there's more love. We may not be seeing it, but you can feel it. You can, see it with people outside there. So I always say
And I
that
don't
when
think
people are like, oh,
and
this
I
world
don't
is
think people
crazy.
realize that one person, their light can shine to so many people on their everyday, just going to the store, just open and doing kindness, kind things. That, like, a lot of people think, oh, it's just me. I can't make a difference. And I always try to like tell people or get the message out, like, you can make a difference. Like in your, like, it's your small town, your family, even your family. It's just you be that light. Because I always, if one person can cause chaos and then it makes national news because it's so chaotic and drama, if that one person can create that darkness, then that means one person can be the opposite to balance that out and be that light. That's
Totally.
my thinking process. So I think we all on our journey have a choice. Am I going to be that darkness that spread out, or am I going to be that light? And a lot of people don't think that on their journey. They don't even have that conscious awareness. Who am I going to be out there?
Yeah.
And so I think if people can just sit down, like, am I going to elevate and grow or be that light to touch people, or am I going to sit in my darkness and wallow? And so, and I think that's the journey too, to figuring out who you are, you
Oh,
know?
totally. That's a choice. I always tell my clients and people that I've worked with, and I try to do this. What is the energy I want to bring into the space?
Yeah.
Because it's going to
Mhm.
affect everybody in the grocery store,
Yes.
the bank, you know what I mean? It's going to
Yeah.
affect everybody. And some
Yeah.
days I may not have a good day. And that's
Yeah.
okay, right? Like I'm not about toxic positivity. It's like, okay, I might not have a good day, but I also don't need to project that onto other people. I
Yes.
don't need to
Yeah.
be a jerk in the grocery store if I'm grumpy or cranky. I can still be nice and honor how I'm feeling. You know what I mean? It's
But I have a
understanding.
question. I have a question for you, Beckett. Then how do you balance being kind in something? Because in our world, we people have this belief system: kindness equals weakness, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, how can you continue to be that light and kind to people without having somebody take advantage of you, um, or thinking it's weakness? I don't know, like, because a lot of people I find stop being kind because they don't want to be stepped on or abused or whatever. So how do you continue to be that kind and that light when some people might view it as, oh, she's weak, I'm gonna freaking like target.
That's a good question. And it's boundaries. You know what I
Oh,
mean? You have to have
yeah.
solid boundaries and know who you are and understand that I can be kind and have solid boundaries, right? And also,
Okay.
what is your definition of kindness? I don't have to be a people pleaser,
Yeah.
but I also don't have to call you out. I don't have to yell. I have to have solid boundaries and say, I see you, I care about you, but you will not cross this line with me. You know what I mean? I will not take this on. This is my sovereignty. This is what I stand for and believe. And I don't have to convince you, and I don't have to scream at you, and I don't have to, you don't even have to understand it, but you will respect it because I respect it. And that, I
Yeah.
think, is what most people struggle with. They don't
Yes.
know how to have good, solid boundaries. And the reason being is they don't really know themselves. How do I
And
have
also
boundaries if I don't know who I am?
and also we weren't taught that. We're
Oh,
actually taught the opposite. In
right.
my culture in growing up, I didn't even know the word boundaries until my 20s because we were so enmeshed that you're right. I don't know where my head
Yeah.
start, my ass begins. It's like everything is so enmeshed with boundaries. And I was raised in a culture where your parents rule, they have a saying, whatever you do,
Yeah.
you have no boundaries with your parents because they can do whatever you want to you, and you have to respect that.
Yes.
And that's kind of like a mind F, right? So
It
you're
totally
taught at a
is.
very young age to not have boundaries. And only then learn, now that you set boundaries with your parents or your family members, of course they're not going to like it because they don't get what they want, you
Right.
know?
Right. Well, and that's the first way that you know that you're setting good boundaries is the people who don't want to adhere to them don't like it. You know what I mean? They don't like it because they're like, well, you've changed. It's like, no, I'm just not tolerating this anymore in my life because this is not okay. Whether you're family, friends, I don't care. It's still not okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where the kindness comes in. And I think we have this,
People pleasing too. You got to stop. Yeah. The people
yeah, well,
pleasing.
exactly. And that's where
You
people
can't
think
have people
kindness,
pleasing boundaries.
right? That's what they think. I have to exude kindness. It's like, no, I can be kind and loving and stand in my sovereignty and hold this boundary and still be kind. I don't have to be, if we look at some of the great leaders, I think Gandhi was a great leader of that,
Yeah.
right? He exuded kindness and he stood his boundaries when people were screaming at him and even in some cases beating them. You know what I mean? And it's
That's
like,
the hardest thing to do. That's the hardest. Like, it's like alchemizing that energy, like that.
but
Like,
think,
it's
well, right, like, one of his quotes are one that I live by is be the change you want to see in the world. Like, that's one thing, and I think that's something we lack in our spiritual community is we can talk a great talk, but are you the embodiment of it? Do you vibrate at that frequency that you claim so much that you talk about? And that takes time and it's a practice, but that should be the goal, right? Is you are the change you want to see in the world. If you're not that change, then what are you doing? Right? You know what I mean? If you don't embody what you're learning, if you don't embody, and it's going to be a failure and a whatever, success, failure, success. To me, there are no failures. I learn or I succeed. I learn or I succeed. That's it, right? Like that's the journey. And I think we had great mystics that taught us that. I mean, I don't even Jesus, right? Buddha, all of these, Martin Luther King Jr., you know what I mean? Nelson Mandela. If you look at these historical figures, they embodied that they spoke and believed. And so it was like, I speak this, and yet I also act it. So I am sovereign and I hold this boundary because my intention and my actions match. And therefore, I stand at truth. And they did. And they changed the world in drastic ways, in ways that, right, like they to me are the epitome of being kind, loving, and having strong boundaries. Even when the rest of the world was beating on them, screaming at them, they are the pillars, Anne Frank.
they killed
You know
them
what I mean?
too, Bucket.
Yeah.
Like, like the people who do walk the path, they can't handle it. So then it sucks.
Well, I think,
That's why.
we all have different journeys. And I think this is what people don't understand. And something I even had to come to comp with. Not all of us are meant to be activists. Not all of us are here to be fighters. Not all of us are to be on the front lines and make the change. There's some of us that are. And then there's some of us that are in the background teaching other things. Like we all have different roles to play. And so it goes back to that humanness of you should be fighting for this. That's
Yeah.
not, I don't,
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
my energetic blueprint on this
Yeah.
planet. That's yours.
Yeah.
And I can honor you and
Yeah.
support you, but that's not why I'm here. So it's understanding, like you said, your divine purpose, your divine energetic blueprint, and what you came here to do. And it could be as important as being a stay-at-home mom and raising beautiful children and whatever, having a lovely community, whatever that is, to running a country or being a pop singer or whatever it is. It doesn't, like you said, one isn't more important than the other. We're all needed. And I think that's the key that people have to understand and see is like, it's all important. We're all here doing something important and we can change people's lives by just knowing ourselves and exuding love and kindness.
Yeah. Can I share with you a memory? I wanted to, this thought came in my head.
Absolutely.
Um, you asked me about my spiritual journey. It came back I think it started very young, my earliest memory, now I think about it, because I always had this remembrance that I wanted to make God proud. Like, I ever since I was a little girl, I was like, okay, I want to make Source proud. And even when I didn't know what Source was, but I had this remembrance where after I die or when we pass, you're going to have to be accountable for every decision and 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 life, or kind of like look back on your life.
Yeah.
You're going to have to look back, review your life. And I have this remembrance where, crap, I don't want to look back in my life and do something shitty and then, have to face God about it or Source about it. So I think that's one of the part what made me follow my journey towards Source is, damn, I want to make Source proud, right? And I think maybe because that veil I'm supposed to forget, I didn't forget that. I don't know, you
Mhm.
know. So I remembered that, and that has been my journey path. And I guess the message I want to put out to people is, a lot of people live their life in ego, thinking they're not going to be accountable, or if they do something behind closed door, no one sees, or and people forget that you see yourself. You're going to see yourself. But people think I can do something to offer to another person. Nobody will know. No, people know. You will
Well,
know.
the most important person
Yeah,
knows, right? Because we are
yeah,
source. And so
exactly. And
source
you
knows that.
and
Yeah.
I don't understand this thing where people are afraid of death, and I've never had that fear of it. So um I think people fear it because they're fearful of being accountable for what they did here.
It's that, and I think the unknown. You know what I mean? Because I don't, and it's funny because that kind of leads to this last question, but I
Oh,
think
okay.
when we cross over, from my understanding, like I had this conversation the other day, and I was like, we're not here to learn lessons. There's a channeling that came in, and I've heard it from other channelers, but it just came in. And it's like, because you're really here to experience life. And then when you cross over, to your point, you'll kind of review and get the lessons quickly. Like, you'll see what you did, you'll see how you went. And it's not even a judgment, right? Because it's all
Yeah.
love. It's just
Yes.
an understanding of, that's
Yes.
why I did that. That's why
Yes.
that changed my soul in some way. And I think it's just death for a lot of people is the fear of the unknown. And in America specifically, we don't talk about death. We don't celebrate it. It's like this thing, this pink elephant in the room nobody wants to talk about. I don't understand why.
Yeah. Me neither.
Other
Yeah.
cultures celebrate it. They talk about, like, we're all going to do it. We're all going to go there. So, like, why don't we just embrace it and talk about it? But we don't. So again, it's that. And I think because it creates fear of the unknown, fear of whatever, and then you have to question, what do you believe? You know what I mean? Do you think you're going to go on? Do you not? And people struggle with that. So I'd rather just not think about it than dive in, which, you know, is all, it's each journey of their own. But I think,
Yeah. Well, that's why I've discovered in myself, I didn't know I was a truth seeker. I didn't know that I was, but I was a truth seeker. And then I thought everyone was, but nope, not everyone. A lot of people want to be ostrich. They want to put their head in their sand, and which is fine. And I've learned my first awakening, I want to share with everyone. And I realized, oh, that's not the way to go about it. I can't, people aren't ready. So
and they may
yeah,
never be. And that may be their soul's journey. And I think that's the key to
exactly.
all this,
Yeah.
is
We
to
all have our
understand that.
journey.
Yes. Okay. So, final question. Describe a spiritual North Star that guides you whenever you feel lost or uncertain.
A spiritual North Star that guides me. Mm, when I feel lost,
Or uncertain.
it's kind of funny because I don't know, this thought came in where at my lowest point, I remember visualizing Jesus just wrapping himself around me, and then holding me
Mhm.
and like protecting me. So I feel like even though I'm not religious in that way, because people always like, oh, Jesus is God and Jesus, and I always be like, are you sure? Da da da. He's a ascended master. That's a teacher, you know, and but people worship. So during, I feel like, I don't know. Are you talking like star? Like if you look in like the
No,
North
I'm
Star?
talking about no, and it's just kind of a metaphor of like what grounds you when you're feeling uncertain. Like for me, for I'll give you an example, and this might help. For me, my North Star is going into nature. When
Oh,
I'm feeling uncertain, when I'm feeling right, like lost, I go sit in a forest, I go sit, by a lake. That's my North Star always, because I go in there and I just be quiet and I just am. I take in nature and I connect to everything around me and I just allow whatever needs to come through. And usually afterwards I have clarity, right? I don't feel so lost. I don't feel so uncertain. I feel very connected to source. I feel okay. And so to me, which is why I have like this compass tattoo of that reminding me, right? To go to the nature is my North Star always. So what is your North Star that it can be something as simple as that. It doesn't have to be anything so profound, but what
I am
keeps
so
you?
glad you asked me this question because it made me realize that there was that block that I had that I didn't even know about,
Yeah.
right? So before it would be music, like in my teens, it would be music, hearing that music vibration, writing music, singing, that would be it. And then it became painful and I shut it down and I literally just turned away from music. So it's amazing to me that you asked this question now because it's becoming to my awareness now that the one thing that was my North Star that's bringing me, I turned away from.
Mhm.
And now I need to come back to it. Isn't that crazy? That's why I stumbled with that question because, oh, shoot, I don't know my North Star. And
Well,
yeah,
and it
it's
might,
nature. It's nature too. It's nature
yeah.
too. And it's grounding and it's meditation, it's all that. But at the true source, my first thought, which I usually pay attention to, was music. And it hit me that, well, I haven't touched music for over a decade. So that's why I've been lost.
Well, and it could be, right? Like, and it's okay if somebody answers me and says, I don't know, maybe I'm still trying to find my North Star. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But usually whenever innately comes up, like that's it. You know what I mean? It could be a cup of tea in a bath. It could be a good book. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be this big thing. It's just your body knows, your soul knows, and there's something you just naturally go to. Painting is also another one for me, but
Yeah.
nature, sitting in nature, like you're saying, music is that's it. You know what I mean? Everything
Yeah.
will come from
It's
that.
me, pen to paper, writing it down and having music that, and for some reason I've been blocking and rejecting that in my life, right? So that's why I'm being called to come back to it now,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Whoa! How much is the therapy session, Beckett? Jesus, I've covered a block.
Why it's a great question to end with. You know what I mean? It's like you never know what's going to happen and how source is going to bring you messages. And right. And that's the thing. Stay open minded, take all the experiences you can get, and just be in the now and have fun, live life, and you'll see,
Yeah.
like, right, this podcast, and look what you're walking away with.
Yeah. Yeah. I just choose happiness. Like we forget, like people always try and bring you down, but you have to be consciously, no, I choose happiness. I want to be happy, you know, and then take the actions. You have to consciously take the actions to, get in that energy vibration.
That's
Yep.
awesome. I love that. Thank you, my friend, for being a part of this.
Thank you, Beckett. Oh my gosh. I had a great time. That was crazy. I loved it.